Hello, my friends. It is a profound privilege to have you here with me today. Find a place where you can truly relax, find your center, and just take a deep breath with me. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a land that is not defined by modern borders, but by ancient memories. Imagine dust-covered hills, the scent of olive trees baking in the Mediterranean sun, and cities made of golden stone that have been built, destroyed, and rebuilt for thousands of years. You are standing in a place that is the cradle of three of the world's great religions, a landscape where every rock holds a story and every valley holds a ghost. Today, we are going to walk together into the labyrinth of this shared and contested past. We are going to explore the modern story of the nation of Israel, a country that was born from an ancient dream, forged in the fires of war, and which today stands as one of the most complex, high-tech, and heavily defended societies on Earth. Take my hand. Let us step back into the flow of this incredible narrative. To truly understand the modern state of Israel, we must first travel back far beyond its founding in 1948. For thousands of years, the Jewish people lived in diaspora, scattered across the continents of the world after their ancient kingdoms in this very land were destroyed by the Babylonians and then the Romans. In every corner of the globe, from the shtetls of Eastern Europe to the markets of Morocco, the Jewish people preserved their distinct identity, their religion, and a profound, unrelenting dream of returning to their ancestral homeland, Zion. For centuries, this dream was spiritual, expressed in daily prayers. But in the late 19th century, a new movement was born that transformed this spiritual hope into a political reality, Zionism. This chapter will explore how Jewish communities began a quiet, determined migration back to a land that was then under the rule of the Ottoman Empire, purchasing fields and building the first modern farms and communities, planting the seeds for what was to come. The real turning point for the Middle East arrived with the cataclysm of World War I. The Ottoman Empire, which had ruled the region for 400 years, collapsed, and a new master took its place, the British Empire. In 1917, a single document was signed that ignited a century-long struggle. It was the Balfour Declaration, in which the British government declared it, viewed with favor, the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. But at the same time, the British made other, confusing promises to Arab leaders who sought independence in the same lands. This chapter will delve into the complex, often contradictory period of the British Mandate. We will see how growing Jewish immigration, driven by the rise of anti-Semitism and then the unspeakable horror of the Holocaust, met with increasing resistance and violence from the Arab population. The British Mandate became a three-way conflict of bombs, skirmishes, and political chaos, leading to the moment when Britain finally decided to withdraw, passing the entire impossible problem to the newly formed United Nations. The year was 1947. The United Nations proposed a pragmatic but impossible solution, partitioning the Mandate territory into two states, one Jewish and one Arab, with Jerusalem as an international zone. The Jewish leadership, desperate for a state after the Holocaust, accepted the plan. The Arab leadership and surrounding nations rejected it as a grave injustice. This chapter will focus on the defining event, On May 14th, 1948, the British flag was lowered for the last time, and David Ben-Gurion declared the independence of the State of Israel. Within hours, a state of war existed. 5 Arab nations launched a synchronized invasion, determined to stop the creation of the new Jewish nation. For Israelis, this was their war of independence, a desperate existential battle for survival where every citizen was a soldier. For Palestinians, this event is known as the Al-Nakba, the catastrophe, a time when hundreds of thousands of people lost their homes, their fields, and their villages, becoming refugees in the territories of Gaza, the West Bank, and surrounding countries. This chapter is crucial for understanding the dual tragedy that is the foundation of the modern conflict. For nearly 2 decades after the War of 1948, a cold peace existed, defined by unstable borders and constant tensions. Israel was a small nation, deeply worried about its security. In the 1960s, tensions escalated rapidly, with Arab leaders making fiery speeches and surrounding armies massing on Israel's borders. In June 1967, Israel, believing it was about to be destroyed, launched a preemptive airstrike against Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. The result was the Six-Day War, a conflict that shocked the world with its speed and outcome. In just 6 days, Israel's modern high-tech army was able to capture the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip from Egypt, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. This chapter will explore how this war dramatically redrew the map of the Middle East, ending the old threat of a state-on-state invasion, but starting a new, infinitely more complex challenge: the occupation of Palestinian territories and the question of land for peace. The aftermath of the 1967 war plunged Israel and the Palestinian people into a new, unending struggle. This chapter will delve into the complexities and tragedies that defined the years following the Six-Day War. For Israelis, the newly captured territories offered a strategic depth they had never known before, but it also placed them in control of a Palestinian population that deeply resented their presence. The Israeli government began a policy of building settlements in the West Bank and Gaza, new communities for Jewish citizens on land that the Palestinian people and the international community saw as the foundation for a future Palestinian state. During this time, we will also trace the rise of the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, under the leadership of Yasser Arafat. Denied a state, Palestinian resistance turned from conventional warfare to a series of hijackings, guerrilla attacks, and international terrorism, designed to keep their cause alive in the minds of the world. For 6 years, Israel lived in the confident belief that it was military dominant and its borders were secure. But on October 6, 1973, on Yom Kippur, the holiest, quietest day of the Jewish calendar, Egypt and Syria launched a massive surprise attack. This chapter will focus on the conflict that became a profound trauma for the young Israeli nation. Caught entirely off guard, Israel's defenses were nearly broken in the first critical days. It was a war of tanks and missiles, a brutal struggle for survival that Israel eventually won, but at a terrible, staggering cost in human life. We will explore how the Yom Kippur War shattered Israel's feeling of invincibility, but it also opened a door that had been locked for decades. It convinced leaders on both sides that war could not provide a final solution, leading eventually to the dramatic first-ever peace treaty between Israel and Egypt in 1979. As the era of massive conventional wars between nations began to fade, a new and different kind of conflict emerged. This chapter will explore the First Lebanon War in 1982, when Israel invaded its northern neighbor to destroy PLO bases, leading to a complex and bloody occupation that lasted for nearly 2 decades. However, the most profound shift occurred not across borders, but within them. In 1987, Palestinian frustration exploded into a popular uprising that began with stones and Molotov cocktails. The First Intifada. Israel's army, designed for tanks and aircraft, found itself on the streets of cities like Gaza and Ramallah, trying to manage a civilian rebellion. This asymmetric conflict changed everything, convincing many Israelis and the world that the occupation of Palestinian lands could not continue without an unrelenting cost in violence and international condemnation. This chapter will delve into perhaps the most dramatic and hopeful period of the modern Middle East, the Oslo Accords of the 1990s. We will explore the secret negotiations that led to a moment that shocked the world, the historic handshake between the Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat, the leader of the PLO, on the lawn of the White House. The goal was incredible: land for peace. The Accords established the Palestinian Authority, a form of self-government for Palestinians in parts of the territories, and created a Kropotливый, painstaking roadmap toward a final two-state solution. But we will also see why this beautiful, impossible dream fractured. Extremists on both sides sought to destroy the process, and in 1995, Rabin was assassinated by a Jewish extremist. Trust evaporated, violence returned, and the hopes of an entire generation were slowly broken by a new cycle of fear and mistrust. At the turn of the new millennium, the fragile peace process collapsed. Following a controversial visit by an Israeli politician to the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem, a second Palestinian uprising erupted, the Second Intifada. This chapter will focus on a period of intense and terrible violence, defined not by stones, but by suicide bombings in Israeli cafes and buses, and by large-scale Israeli military operations in Palestinian cities. It was a war of absolute terror and unrelenting defense. In response, Israel made the momentous decision to construct the massive, controversial separation barrier, a wall of concrete and steel, to stop the attacks. This chapter will also explore Israel's controversial disengagement from Gaza in 2005, a decision to withdraw all its soldiers and settlers, only for the territory to fall under the control of the militant group Hamas, turning the Gaza border into a primary focus of modern conflict. For the past 2 decades, the focus of the conflict has shifted primarily toward a tragic, repeated cycle in the Gaza Strip. This chapter will delve into the asymmetric wars between Israel and the militant organization Hamas. We will see how Israel, after withdrawing from Gaza, created a blockade to stop the flow of weapons, leading to a humanitarian crisis for the 2 million Palestinian people living in the small, crowded territory. In response, Hamas developed a new strategy of firing thousands of rockets into Israeli cities and digging massive networks of attack tunnels. This chapter will focus on the resulting operations and wars that have repeatedly devastated Gaza, causing staggering casualties and unimaginable destruction, while Israel developed the Iron Dome, a high-tech, Shalom stunning defense system to protect its own citizens from the rockets. This chapter is crucial for understanding the unresolved and unrelenting nature of the modern conflict. Despite living in a state of unrelenting conflict, Israel has achieved something incredible. This chapter will explore how a nation born from nothing and forced to spend huge amounts of money on defense became a global high-tech superpower known today as Startup Nation. We will see how the very challenge of security led to a national culture of innovation, creativity, and resilience. From advanced agricultural technology that allows crops to grow in the desert, to the development of sophisticated cybersecurity and medical breakthroughs, Israel has proven that it is capable of building an Shalom stunning civilization even while living on defense. This chapter is vital for understanding the dual nature of Israel, a country that seems always to be at war, but which is also deeply focused on building a peaceful and creative future for its citizens. As we begin to bring our journey to a close, let us sit together for a moment in the silence of this shared story. Israel today is a nation of incredible achievements, but it is also a nation defined by its historical scars. In this chapter, we will summarize the enduring legacy of this unending quest for security. We will see how Israel has normalized relations with several of its Arab neighbors through the recent Abraham Accords, creating new hopes for a different Middle East. Yet, the Palestinian question, the question of land, of sovereignty, and of two peoples sharing a single, small geography, remains the open, tragic wound at the heart of the region. The stones do not speak, but they hold the memory of 50,000 lives lost. Standing in front of the Drevni, ancient walls of Jerusalem, we cannot avoid the hardest questions. What does it mean to be truly secure? And how can a lasting peace be built when it must be Kropot Levi, painstakingly constructed from the fragments of decades of fear and pain? The fire is getting very low now, and it is time for us to rest. Thank you for walking with me through this incredible and difficult story tonight. This journey into the past of Israel has shown us that nothing lasts forever. Empires rise, buildings crumble, but stories, even the most contested ones, endure. Language is the bridge that allows us to walk through these ancient arches of history, to sit by this fire, and to try to understand the profound, Shalom stunning complexity of the human heart. In this final Mindflow meditation, we will connect the lessons of Israel with your own journey of learning English. Every new word you master is like a stone in your own monument. It allows you to travel through time, to open your mind to new ideas, and to decide who you want to be. The Colosseum still stands, my friends, and so do you. Stay in the flow, stay curious, and know that you are not alone on this journey. We are walking together. Goodbye.